Hey guys, tonight we drift back to a small, mist-shrouded corner of 14th century Bohemia, where a single creaking wooden bridge somehow managed to start an entire war. Well, war might be generous. You'll see soon enough. You probably won't survive this one, not because of swords or arrows, but because it's so spectacularly uneventful, you might just fall asleep before the first toll bell rings. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And if you're listening from a faraway place, drop your location and local time in the comments below. I love seeing where everyone's tuning in from, whether it's midnight in Melbourne or a rainy dawn in Dublin. Now, dim the lights maybe? Turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You find yourself standing on a narrow country road, the kind that curves like an afterthought between low, misty hills. The smell of wet moss hangs in the air, and ahead of you a small bridge slouches over a lazy river. It's not impressive, not even sturdy. Its planks bend under the weight of your imagination. To the left lies the village of Vltín, famous for its onions and its one good lute player. To the right, Krásno, known mainly for having a slightly taller church steeple, and a chronic sense of superiority about it. Between them runs this bridge, a few logs, patched with faith in splinters. And somewhere beneath it, history is about. To hiccup. They say it all began on a Tuesday. Tuesdays are underrated troublemakers. A cart laden with salt barrels. Salt was precious then, nearly sacred, rolled across the bridge. The wheels groaned, the horses snorted, and then came that. S-O-U-N-D-A crack. A slow, complaining creak like an old man waking from a nap he didn't consent to. Then silence. The cart made it across somehow, but the bridge sagged, and one of the planks tilted into the river. Now, in most places, someone would fetch nails, repair it, and move on. But this was Bohemia in the 1300s, and nothing was that simple. The river, called the Milenis, was the natural border between two feudal estates. One belonged to Lord Benes of Vltín, a man with a fine mustache and absolutely no patience. The other to Lady Ludmilla of Krásno, a widow known for her fondness for embroidery. Strong opinions and swans, the broken plank quickly became a matter of pride. Lord Benes sent word that the bridge was Krásno's problem. They had built it last time. Lady Ludmilla replied that it was Vltín's cart that broke it, and she'd be expecting reimbursement for damages and emotional distress of the swans. Peasants, caught between them, sighed and went back to tilling the muddy fields. You, meanwhile, can hear the low hum of gossip rising like smoke through the fog. In the tavern, someone insists that the bridge was cursed by a monk who fell into the river centuries ago. Someone else claims it's a test from God. Another says maybe we just need better carpenters. He's promptly ignored. By Thursday, both villages had stopped trading across the river. The ferryman refused to row without double payment, citing war conditions. You stand by the bank as the rain begins again, misty drops that patter against the surface of the Milenis like fingers tapping a drum. The wooden rail creaks beside you, repeating that same tired groan. It's oddly hypnotic. By Sunday, banners were raised. Not grand ones. These were more like repurposed laundry sheets painted with crude emblems. Lord Benes's banner bore a red wheel. Lady Ludmilla's showed a white goose. The villagers joked that the goose would win if it just honked loudly. Enough. Historians still debate whether either side truly believed they were at war. Some records describe military proceedings. Others suggest it was mostly a series of tense picnics. One chronicler, along with suspiciously dramatic handwriting, wrote that 3 men were seen marching with intent, though their intent was unclear. And yet, for a full fortnight, the villages glared at each other across the broken bridge, exchanging insults, bad songs, and occasionally vegetables. A cabbage or two might have been thrown. You lean over the railing, watching water swirl around the half-submerged plank. A small fish darts by, oblivious to the human nonsense above. The sound of the river is steady, calming, a rhythm older than any border dispute. At night, you wander through Vltín. The blacksmith hammers idly, mostly, for the sound. In the tavern, old men debate tactics. Should they build a raft? Train the geese for reconnaissance? One proposes sending a spy disguised as a monk. But no one has a spare robe. You can almost feel the absurdity settling into the air like dust. There's tension, yes, but also an undercurrent of playfulness. The villagers seem oddly alive in their newfound rivalry. Even the children join in, staging miniature battles with sticks and onion bulbs. One morning, the mist lifts just enough to reveal a strange sight. Both sides have lined up at dawn, facing each other across the water. You expect shouting, maybe swordplay, but instead nothing. Just the hollow sound of the river. Then, from the Krásno side, someone coughs. From Vltín, someone sneezes. A few geese honk. Then everyone quietly disperses. You realize the war has already become a story in motion, something that exists more in talk than in action. Still, the creak of the bridge remains, echoing faintly, even when no one's near it. Like the land itself is laughing softly under its breath dot as you walk away. You notice a carpenter inspecting the damage. He runs a hand over the splintered edge and shakes his head. It's not broken, he murmurs. It's just tired. That night, the rain returns, tapping on rooftops and puddles, soothing the bickering world to sleep. Somewhere in the distance, the bells of Krásno toll. For evening prayers, their echo carried by the mist. You think you can hear the bridge answering, creak for chime, like two old friends keeping rhythm across the centuries. The sound lulls you into calm, and as your eyes grow heavy, the faint glow of candlelight from the tavern windows flickers. Over the river, shimmering like forgotten laughter, tomorrow they'll argue again. But tonight the bridge rests, the war unborn, suspended in drizzle and dreams. Morning breaks in a damp sigh. The mist doesn't lift so much as it loosens its grip on the valley, curling around the chimneys of Vltín like a sleepy cat reluctant to leave its perch. You still hear boots squelching in the mud near the half-collapsed bridge. The scent of wet hay and wood smoke thicken your nose. The war, if we're still calling it that, has settled into something oddly domestic. Both villages now maintain camps, though they're little more than tents pitched in soggy meadows, decorated with mismatched banners and hopeful pride. You step carefully between puddles, listening to the soft suction of your shoes as you approach Lord Bennis's side. He's in a foul mood this morning, though to be fair, that seems to be his natural state. The Lord of Vltín sits beneath a sagging awning, trying to read a scroll while a chicken pecks persistently at his boot. The scroll sealed with red wax bears the emblem of the regional duke, politely requesting that all hostilities be resolved before market day. You glance at Bennis's expression. He looks as though the parchment has personally insulted his ancestors. Across the river, you can just make out Lady Ludmila's encampment, a cluster of bright tents arranged with military precision and aesthetic. Flare? Smoke curls from their cook fires, carrying the smell of roasted barley and herbs. You inhale deeply? It smells far better than the boiled onion soup simmering beside you on the Vltín side. Justice. Lord Bennis mutters, tearing a piece of bread that looks like it could double as a weapon. That's what this is about, not tolls, not bridges. Justice. You've heard that before. Everyone here says it. The peasants mutter it while hauling buckets from the well. The soldiers, if they can be called that, repeat it around the fire, puffing their chests like pigeons. Even the shepherd boys use it as an excuse to chase rival flocks too close to enemy turf. The word has become so slippery it's hard to tell what anyone means anymore. Justice for a broken plank? For a bruised ego? For the sheer boredom of peasant life in late medieval Bohemia? You wander from the Lord's tent into the surrounding camp. The air hums with a mix of smoke and chatter. Someone's hammering metal, though it's not armor, just a pot lid being reforged into a shield. Two men argue whether geese could be trained to deliver messages. They always come back home, one insists. Perfect for diplomacy. Nearby, a boy is carefully painting the Vltín emblem, red wheel, onto a bit of old parchment. He dips his brush into the pigment too eagerly, leaving uneven streaks. When he notices you watching, he grins shyly. It's for the record, he says, so history remembers us. You smile, wondering if history ever remembers the muddy. Parts. The smell of iron grows sharper as you approach the blacksmith's lean-to. He's shaping nails, hundreds of them, for the new bridge that no one has agreed to build yet. Someone will, he says, when you ask. They always do, eventually. Wars end. Nails last. He gestures to a small pile of them glinting. In the gray light, each one like a promise no one knows how to keep. By noon. The rain starts again, thin at first, then steady, drumming on the tents like 1,000 tiny fingers. You cross to the edge of the river, where the two camps can see each other, but not speak without shouting. The Malanus looks swollen, restless. Then you spot a figure trudging along the opposite bank. Lady Ludmilla herself, holding an umbrella of oiled silk. Her gown is muddy at the hem, but her posture remains regal. She pauses mid-bridge, or what's left of it, and stares down at the broken plank. It's the first time you've seen her up close. She's older than you expected, her face both kind and stubborn. When she lifts her gaze, it briefly meets yours. You almost think she's going to smile. Instead, she turns and disappears into her tent, trailing the faint scent of lavender and damp wool. That night, word spreads that Ludmilla has written a formal complaint to the church, demanding arbitration. Lord Bennis responds by having a scribe draft his own letter, accusing her of bridge negligence and unlawful swan behavior. You overhear the scribe whisper that unlawful swan behavior isn't technically a crime, but Bennis waves him off. In the tavern of Vltín, temporarily relocated to a large tent. The men are laughing louder than usual. Fueled by cheap ale and soggy pride. Someone starts a song about the war of the wobbly bridge, and soon the whole tent joins in, their off-key voices mixing with the hiss of rain. You can't help chuckling, but as the laughter fades, the sound of that bridge creeps back into your awareness, the warped, tired creak carried on the wind. It seems to echo through everything now, in the rhythm of the rain, in the crackle of the fire, even in the quiet sighs of the weary villagers. A messenger arrives before dawn, drenched and shivering. His horse looks ready to collapse. He brings no good news, only confusion. The Duke's men will visit soon to inspect the situation. Panic briefly stirs both camps. What if they lose their lands? What if they're fined? By morning, both sides scramble to look respectable. Mud is swept aside, banners are straightened, and someone hangs fresh herbs by the tents to disguise the smell of smoke and wet wool. You can't help but laugh quietly, two armies pretending not to be fighting, hoping to look just guilty enough to be interesting, but not enough to be punished. As the day warms, you catch a whiff of something faintly sweet, a pot of honeyed porridge being stirred by a young cook. The smell mingles with smoke and rain, creating a strangely comforting perfume of sustenance and surrender. You notice, tucked under one of the benches, a crumpled bit of parchment. The wax seal is half melted from the damp, but you can still see the faint imprint of a wheel and goose pressed together, as if by accident. You tuck it into your pocket. A soggy parchment sealed with wax, maybe meaningless now. You have a feeling it'll matter later. As evening falls, the river glows with reflected torchlight. The air feels thick with unspoken apologies and stubborn pride. You listen to the chorus of crickets, the murmuring camps, and that endless creaking sound like the bridge is whispering. Still here, still waiting. You close your eyes too. The smell of wet hay and smoke, and somewhere in the distance, a rooster crows too early, declaring peace where none has been made. Morning slips in quietly, like an afterthought. The fog has thinned, though the air still tastes of damp earth and distant wood smoke. You wake to the sound of murmuring voices, low and musical like gossip set to melody. Somewhere across the river, someone is singing. It's not a war song, exactly. More like a teasing lullaby with the of a marching tune. The words, when you catch them, make you laugh softly. Oh, brave Lord Bennis and his mighty wheel, who fights for a bridge no one can feel. You don't know who composed it, but The melody is sticky, it clings to the morning air and won't leave. The men on Bennis's side pretend to be insulted, but by noon, they're humming it too. Someone changes the lyrics to mock Lady Ludmila's geese instead. And soon both banks are singing insults that sound suspiciously like friendship. The Battle of the Broken Bridge has entered its musical phase. You wander toward the waters. Edge, where two boys have constructed a miniature bridge out of sticks. One flicks pebbles at it, the other defends it with a wooden spoon. Behind them, a line of women wash clothes in the river, their laughter rising and falling with the splash of wet linen. Historians still debate, you murmur to yourself, whether this counts as combat. Because, oddly enough, the war has escalated in every sense but violence. Both sides now hold mourning assemblies, small parades where banners are raised, bread is broken, and speeches are made. The speeches rarely last long. Someone always forgets their lines or gets distracted by a passing goat. Today, Lady Ludmila has ordered her musicians to play at dawn. Not to inspire courage, she insists, but to demonstrate cultural superiority. Her minstrels, 4 men with lutes, one with a bagpipe line the river bank and start a tune so merry that even the frogs pause to listen, not to be outdone. Lord Bennis responds by commissioning his blacksmith to craft a drum from an old washtub. The result sounds like distant thunder when struck, which he considers psychologically intimidating. You sit by the river and watch this absurd theater unfold. The mist has burned away, revealing a sky of washed-out blue and a stretch of green hills so vivid they almost look painted. Birds flit across the water, unbothered by the human drama below. And then comes the strangest part of the day. The exchange of bread. It starts when one of Ludmila's servants, carrying a basket of loaves, slips near the riverbank. A loaf tumbles into the water and floats lazily downstream. A boy from Vltín wades in, rescues it, and after a moment of hesitation takes a bite. The onlookers cheer. Soon, more bread follows. A food skirmish, they'll call it later. Loaves flying through the air, chunks of cheese hurled across the river, laughter echoing so loud it scares the swans. By dusk, everyone's full and slightly embarrassed. No one can remember how the quarrel started. You linger near the edge of the Vltín camp as torches flicker to life. The air smells of smoke and roasted grain. Somewhere in the distance, a man is telling the story again, louder each time, turning bread into boulders, laughter into bravery. You can't help smiling. Wars are supposed to end in ruins, not in indigestion. Still, there's tension beneath. The laughter, you can feel it in the way Lord Bennis scowls when the song drifts back across the river, in the way Ludmila's guards polish their helmets, as if to remind everyone they still have them. The peace feels like thin ice, lovely but temporary. That night, the stars come out small, uncertain specks in the sky washed pale by mist. You sit by the river, tracing ripples with your boot. The air's so still you can hear conversations on the other bank, faint but clear. The plank's still missing, someone says. It's just one piece of wood, but without it. We could fix it, another voice replies. If anyone wanted to, and that's the heart of it, isn't it? The bridge isn't really broken. It's waiting for someone to care more about crossing than about claiming. You pull the soggy parchment from your pocket, the one with the blurred seal you found days ago. The wax has dried now, its imprint faded into something that looks almost like 2 symbols pressed together, a wheel and a goose. You turn it over in your hands, wondering if it was a draft of a peace treaty or just a note someone dropped. A distant lute begins to play again, soft and meandering, its notes drifting across the water like tiny boats. You close your eyes, listening. The bridge creaks faintly in the breeze, answering the melody with its old wooden side. At this point in the story, historians become confused. Records suggest a minor skirmish, but no one agrees what that meant. One chronicle describes heroic gestures of defiance involving banners. Another mentions 3 goats and a misunderstanding. What's certain is that one misty morning, both armies, if that's still the right word, lined up once more. Torches flickered, drums beat faintly, and everyone waited for the signal that never came. Instead, someone began singing the bread song again. Then someone else joined in. And then, as the sun rose over the damp hills, two entire villages sang across the river together, their voices mixing in the fog until no one could tell who was enemy or friend. You stand there, goosebumps rising, not from fear, but from something quieter realization of peace. When it comes, often sounds like laughter disguised as surrender docked by evening. The song fades into the hum of crickets and the slow gurgle of the river. A few loaves float by like tiny boats, their crusts glistening in the twilight. The villagers pack up their makeshift camps, though no one says the word end. The bridge still leans, tired and waiting, but the air feels lighter. Someone hums that tune again, softer now, as though the valley itself is singing itself to sleep, and you somehow feel a little sad that it's over, because for a brief, ridiculous moment, war had been so harmless it became beautiful. You glance. One last time at the bridge. Its planks gleam wet in the moonlight. Its gaps glint like missing teeth. And as the night deepens, you swear you can hear it hum. That same old creak that started everything steady, patient, alive. The years slide by quietly, like silt carried by the Molinous River. You're back again older. Maybe wiser, though this place doesn't look much changed. The hills are still green. The air still carries that mix of wet grass and wood smoke. And the bridge, the bridge stands once more, stubborn and new, or rather newish. Someone rebuilt it, clearly. The wood is fresher, the railings straighter. But the river, ever mischievous, has already gnawed at one of the supports, and a corner of the walkway sags as if sighing under invisible weight. A pair of geese waddle across, oblivious, leaving a trail of muddy prints. You run a hand along. The railing, the texture is rough, the grain rising beneath your fingertips like veins. The carpenters must have used pine. It smells faintly of resin and river moss. For a moment, the sensation pulls you back to that first night. Rain, arguments, the endless creak of wood and pride. There's no sign of Lord Benny's or Lady Ludmilla anymore. Their descendants live in nearby towns, respectable and dull. The fields, that once held tents, are now full of barley and daisies. If not for a small moss-covered stone at the river's edge that reads Bridge Restored 3062, no one would know a war ever happened here. But history has a habit of lingering where it's least wanted. A group of children are skipping. Stones by the bank. You sit beside them and listen to their chatter. One girl, no more than 8, tells the others the story as she's heard it. How 2 mighty armies fought for 7 years, and how a goose once stole a lord's sword and became queen of the river. Her friends gasp and giggle, demanding proof. You can't help but laugh softly. Stories, it seems, are sturdier than bridges. An old man approaches, bent-backed, wearing a cap patched more times than you can count. He introduces himself as Jacob, the keeper of the river. You recognize the title immediately. There's always been one, passed down generation to generation. His task, he says, is simple, to keep the bridge from falling again. Hasn't worked yet, he adds with a grin, revealing a mouth short on teeth but rich in mischief. He invites you to walk with him. Together you cross the bridge, step by step. The wood moans beneath your boots but holds firm. Halfway across, he stops and taps one of the beams. This one, he says, is cursed. You raise an eyebrow? Cursed? Jacob nods solemnly. Every time we replace it, the river rises, floods a bit. Not enough to destroy, just enough to remind us who's boss. Some say it's the ghost of the bridge itself, unhappy with too much fixing. You look down at the flowing water. Sunlight flashes off it in shifting patterns, like the flicker of candlelight. So you leave it be? You ask. He shrugs. Mostly. Sometimes a thing wants to creak. It's hard to argue with that dot as you reach the far bank. A cart rattles by, its wheels splashing through shallow puddles. The driver tips his hat, whistling an old tune that sounds suspiciously like the bread song. The same melody that once bridged laughter across the river centuries ago. You hum it under your breath, and Jacob smiles, surprised that you know it. Ah, he says, the song of the not war. My grandmother used to sing that when it rained. He leads you to a small hut overlooking the water. Inside, it smells of pine tar, damp wool, and boiled potatoes. A few shelves hold jars of nails, bits of rope, and a single polished river stone. He places it in your hand. It's smooth, rounded by centuries of current. From the old bridge, he says. They used these stones in the foundation. Found it when we rebuilt. You turn it over in your palm, the weight comforting, almost warm. Do people still tell the story? You ask. Oh, yes, Jacob replies, stirring the pot on his stove. Though each village tells it differently. Vltín says their lord, won by diplomacy. Krásno says their lady scared him off with superior wit. The truth? He chuckles. They both got tired of repairing bridges. Outside, the day fades to amber. The river reflects the sky like liquid honey, the occasional ripple blurring the horizon. You step out to watch the light dim, the smell of cooking herbs drifting from Jacob's hut dot as dusk deepens. Fireflies spark to life along the banks. Somewhere in the distance, a church bell tolls once, then twice soft, hollow, and slow. You feel time folding in on itself. You reach into your pocket and find that same river pebble, now warm from your grasp. You place it carefully on the railing of the bridge, just beside the cursed beam. Maybe it will bring luck, or maybe it will simply remember you. Later, as the first stars appear, Jacob joins you again. He leans on his walking stick, looking out at the glowing water. Funny thing, he muses. Every spring the river swells, floods a little, and every year someone asks if it's time to build a new bridge, but we never do. We patch it, we fuss over it, and somehow it lasts another year, like an old story that refuses to end. The wind picks up, carrying the faint scent of wet pine and earth. You can hear the bridge creak, slow and steady, that same sound that's echoed through centuries. You close your eyes, listening. It doesn't sound tired anymore, just alive. Before you leave, Jacob presses something into your palm, a fresh pebble, smooth and cold. In case you come back, he says. The river likes to keep track of who listens. As you walk away, the moon rises, painting the bridge in pale silver. You glance back once. The figure of Jacob stands at the far end, framed by starlight, humming the tune of the not war to the rhythm of the flowing Milanus. You carry the pebble in your pocket, the same way you once carried that soggy parchment. 2 fragments of peace, preserved not in monuments, but in hands that remembered to hold them. The bridge is older now, and so, if you're honest, you return one last time late autumn twilight bleeding into frost. The road that once wound down toward Vltín is quiet, overgrown in places with silverweed and moss. The air smells faintly of cold water and chimney smoke. You hear it before you see it. That soft, weary creak. The bridge's heartbeat echoing through the valley like a lullaby for ghosts. The river Milanus glides beneath, smooth as glass. A few leaves float, past like tiny rafts, their reflection shimmering gold beneath the fading light. On the far bank, a lantern glows, small, steady, patient. The bridge keeper is still here. Jacob's gone, of course, but his granddaughter, Hannah, tends the post now. She waves when she sees you, her breath forming clouds in the chill air. You made it before winter, she says. Her voice has that lilting cadence of those who've grown up with old songs. She leads you to the keeper's hut. Inside, the air is warm and thick with the smell of wood smoke and honey tea. The same jars line the shelves, bits of rope, nails, a few tools dulled from decades of use. In the corner sits Jacob's walking stick, its handle smoothed by time. And weather. You notice the river stone you left years ago resting on the windowsill. Someone's carved a faint spiral into it now, marked like a current turning back on itself. My grandfather said you were the one who brought this, Hannah murmurs. He kept it close during floods, said it reminded the river who was listening. You Smile, touched and a little embarrassed. I just thought it belonged here. Outside, the night deepens. You both step out to the bridge where frost has begun to dust the rails in silver. The wood feels rougher than before, but steady. The same patch of cursed timber still hums faintly when the wind moves through it. As if singing to itself, the Dathana tells you the villagers still tell the story. But now it's gentler, worn smooth. By centuries of retelling Dot in this version, there was no anger, only misunderstanding. The bridge broke itself, they say, to teach two villages patience. The river wanted rest and the people wanted meaning, so they met halfway. The war became a festival, the day of the creaking bridge, celebrated every spring with songs, bread, and laughter. You picture it easily. Children tossing loaves like offerings, geese parading like royalty, and old women humming the same tune that once drifted between camps. You lean against the railing. Beneath you, the water glows with moonlight. You could swear you see faint shapes swirling under the surface, reflections, perhaps, or memories. Hannah speaks softly beside you. Sometimes, on still nights, I hear the bridge sing. You tilt your head, listening. There it is, the faintest murmur, almost like breathing. A rhythm of timber and air, rising and falling with the river's pulse. It's not the wind, she continues. It's something else, like it remembers. Like it doesn't want to be forgotten. You nod slowly. Some things don't. The two of you fall silent, watching the water. The world feels suspended in quiet, no words, no lords, no grievances, just the endless conversation between wood and current, air and memory. Historians still debate whether there was ever a battle here. Some insist it was merely a tax dispute. Others claim it was a symbolic rebellion against authority. But standing here, feeling the hum of the bridge beneath your palms, you realize it doesn't matter what they say. The truth of it isn't in scrolls or ledgers. It's in the creak of the wood, the reflection of fireflies over the river, the smell of smoke and pine and rain that lingers centuries later. The truth is in how gently this place insists on being remembered. You close your eyes, letting the sounds wrap around you, the low trickle of water, the soft wind through the reeds, Hannah's quiet hum of the bread song. It's slower now, tender, almost like a prayer. The melody drifts over the river, and for a moment, you could swear you hear other voices join in, men and women long gone, laughing through fog, tossing loaves across the water. The sound rises, mingles, then fades again into the sigh of the current. Hannah hands you something small, a wax-sealed note, brittle with age. You recognize the faint imprint, half wheel, half goose. Found it in the rafters, she says. We keep it here, as proof, though no one opens it anymore. Feels wrong to read what the river's already told. You trace the seal with your thumb and smile. Best to let it rest, then. Exactly, she whispers. The air turns colder, but you don't mind. You rest your hands on the railing, feeling the pulse of the old wood beneath your fingers. It creaks once more, the sound soft and familiar, like an old friend clearing its throat before speaking. You whisper, "Still here?" The bridge answers with a low, contented groan. The river keeps moving, slow and eternal, carrying bits of moonlight downstream. Somewhere, a church bell tolls the late hour, and the valley folds itself into sleep. You linger until your breath fogs the air, until the lantern by the hut flickers low. Hannah waves goodnight and disappears inside, leaving you alone with the night and the sound of the river. You listen one last time. The bridge creaks again, timeless dot, and in that sound, everything remains. The laughter, the pride, the foolishness, the peace. The war fought entirely over a broken bridge in medieval Bohemia still whispers across the water, so quiet now that only dreamers can hear it. And now, as the echoes of the Melanus fade, let your breath slow with the river's rhythm. You can still hear the bridge's faint creak, an old song of wood, water, and time. Each sound stretches long and slow, like the valley itself exhaling. The wars are gone, the lords and ladies long forgotten. But the bridge endures not in strength, but in memory. Picture yourself sitting by the bank. The lantern glow reflected in the water, frost glimmering along the rail. You reach out and touch the cold wood. Beneath it, the current hums a lullaby centuries in the making. A soft wind moves through the reeds. The world feels smaller now, safer. Everything that once was loud pride, fear, confusion has settled into quiet ripples. You can almost smell pine and wet earth, feel the cool mist against your skin, dot in your hand rests a smooth river stone. Warm now from your touch. You imagine dropping it gently into the water. Hear the faint plunk, see the rings widen, then fade. The sound drifts downstream where it will join 1,000 other forgotten moments. That's history too. The kind that doesn't shout, the kind that hums you to sleep. So take one last deep breath. In through your nose, out through your mouth. The bridge creaks one final time. A good night. A promise. The river carries the sound away. You are still. The night is still, and the story is complete. End of script. Sweet dreams.